I declare the Sharks make a big trade, re-sign some of their own players, and add some more pieces in free agency on today's episode of Locked On Sharks.
You're Locked On Sharks, your daily podcast on the San Jose Sharks. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, welcome to Locked On Sharks, the premier hockey podcast covering your favorite team in the Bay Area. My name is JD Young, contributor at San Jose Hockey Now and Inside the Rink. I want to thank you for making Locked On Sharks your first listen. Proudly a part of the Locked On Network, where we cover your team every day or Saturday night if it needs to be. So if you want to be an everydayer, just follow along wherever you get podcasts, or you can subscribe on YouTube as well. And the Sharks make some big moves. One big move. And then they kind of just take care of their own and add some pieces in free agency. So we're going to kind of go through all these pieces, look at some of the newest players they added. And then, and of course, though, we have to start with the Anthony Duclair trade. So the Sharks, if you're watching on YouTube, great day for watching on YouTube. But the Sharks did add this is a very good trade by Mike Grier. So the Sharks acquired Anthony Duclair from the Florida Panthers in exchange for Steven Lorentz and a 2025 fifth-round pick. Anthony Duclair, if you do not know, a great goal scorer. If you look at his numbers from last year, they're not too great because he was coming off an Achilles injury. So last offseason around this time, he hurt his Achilles in offseason training and missed a majority of the season. Only played 20 games last year, had 2 goals, 7 assists with 43 shots on goal, 14.51 average time on ice with 49.56 Corsi for, and 58.33 goals for. But in the playoffs, in 20 games, he had 4 goals and 7 assists during that time. And Anthony Duclair, a former 30-goal scorer. This man has scored 30 goals in his life in a single season. We'll look at his offensive numbers, and then we'll dig into kind of why this trade is a great trade for Mike Grier. So looking at the last 3 seasons combined, and especially last year where he did not have a lot of he just didn't have a big enough sample size. But Duclair, 49th percentile player, playing kind of second-line minutes, 71st percentile offensively, 4th percentile defensively. He is going to help the Sharks score goals, especially for a team that, after the Timo Meier trade, struggled to score goals. He's going to play big power play minutes. Duclair he's good at drawing penalties and good at not taking penalties. His defense is terrible, but he plays wing. Who cares? The Sharks need goal scorers, and I think Anthony Duclair can be a big piece to helping the Sharks add some more, just a little bit more of a threat on the back end. So why this trade? I love this trade, to be honest. So giving up Steven Lorentz, who is the Sharks' 4th-line center. He was a great player for the Sharks last year, really helped their PK, really kind of solidified himself as an everyday NHL player. He is no Anthony Duclair. Like I said, Anthony Duclair is a former 30-goal scorer. He provides something that really nobody else on the Sharks right now can provide, with just pure goal scoring talent. His speed, his forecheck, his ability to generate offense is something the Sharks just do not have. And he's on a great contract. He has 1 year left at a $3 million contract. $3 million. Some other Sharks players, just to keep that in mind, a 30-goal scorer getting paid $3 million. Kevin LeBanc, $4.725 million. Oscar Lindblom, $2.5 million. Luke Cunnin, $2.75. million. Just an example of some of the other forwards who none of those guys are scoring 30 goals this year. None of those guys are going to be close to scoring 30 goals. And I don't expect Duclair to score 30 goals this year, but Duclair should be in contention to be a 20 to 25 goal scorer for this team, especially if he's going to be playing top 6 minutes like Mike Grier said he's projects him to be today. On Mike Grier's availability, he said Duclair is basically, there's not too much competition, and he expects Duclair to get all the opportunity to kind of be a top 6 forward for the Sharks. Again, you're paying him $3 million. And this gives the Sharks flexibility going forward. So he'll be 28 by the start of the season. And you can kind of decide, go through the season. If he is great, you can either re-sign him next year to another, I would say maybe 2 to 3 year type of deal. As we'll see with Mike Grier, he's been very, very short term with a lot of these deals. Short term and not a lot of money. I would assume Duclair, if he has a great season, would need a little bit of a significant bump. But again, we know the Sharks' cap situation next year is going to look so much better, especially with guys like Kevin Labanc coming off the books, right? Lindblom coming off the books, Luke Cunnin coming off the books, Radim Šimić coming off the book. The Sharks are going to have plenty of cap space going into next offseason. They're going to have some holes to fill, of course, but the Sharks, they will have plenty of cap space next year. And it's not like any of the signings today are going to prohibit them from basically doing whatever they want to do next offseason, whether it be big spenders and what should be a much better draft or a much better free agent class, or if the Sharks want to, continue to kind of build this slowly, and adding pieces like Duclair who can continue to contribute, kind of these short or kind of medium term guys like, same thing like Alexander Barabanov, who you want to keep around because they're good players, you could do that as well. Or if Duclair is good and a contending team wants to add some more scoring pop on a very, very team-friendly contract next season or during, the trade deadline, Duclair fits that, right? If Duclair's got 20 goals by the trade deadline and a team wants to offer, a first-round pick or a second-round pick for Anthony Duclair because they can easily fit his contract in and he can come in, and we've seen him perform in the playoffs. Again, he scored 11 points in 20 playoff games last season for the Florida Panthers. That's nothing to sneeze at right there. That's a solid contributor, and he was still working his way back from Achilles injury. So you assume a full off season where he's not rehabbing, can actually just train to prepare and continue to build that speed back up. This is a great trade. This is a perfect buy, taking advantage of another team. We know the Florida Panthers tapped out on cap space, trying to maneuver around, trying to do whatever they can right now to go back, but losing a piece like Duclair. And Steven Lorentz is going to help the Panthers, right? Steven Lorentz is going to be, he's going to come in on their bottom 6. He's going to help their penalty kill, which their penalty kill was atrocious last year. He's going to help stuff like that. But again, Steven Lorentz is nowhere near as good as Anthony Duclair, and the Sharks crushed this trade. Mike Grier easily won this trade, and it gives them a bigger asset to go do something else with. So you can either have a top 6 forward that's going to be cheap probably for the next couple seasons, or you can maybe get another asset out of him later at the trade deadline that helps you to kind of restock the cupboard in the draft. So could you imagine that, especially if the Devils get, who knows, maybe the Devils go to Eastern Conference Finals, that's a first round pick. Sharks are going to be bad again next year. That's going to be a very high-end first-round pick. And then if Duclair, you should be rooting for Duclair to just come out having a monster season, because what if Duclair, like I said, what if he's like a 20, 25 goal scorer by the time the trade deadline happens? You could be looking at another first-round pick, especially with that contract. You could be walking into next year's draft with 3 first-round picks. So we're just saying. So, Before we get into the re-signings and Blackwood, and then we get to meet the rest of the newest Sharks, do want to take a quick break, talk to you guys about our friends over at FanDuel. So we know it is baseball season right now. Baseball gets all of its glory because there's no other sports right now. And you want to take your first swing at betting MLB on FanDuel, you can get 10 times your bet amount in bonus bets up to $200. That's right. Just bet $20 and you'll land $2,000 in bonus bets, win or lose. That's $200 you can spend, bet on everything from the money line to over under to who you think is going to get the first home run. All in an app that's safe, secure, and super easy to use. Plus, when you win, you get paid instantly. So there's no better place to bet on FanDuel than to bet on MLB than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So sign up today. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and get $200 bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel, official partner of Major League Baseball. All right, so the Sharks, they did kind of a lot of taking care of their own business today. So, or kind of heading into the trade deadline, or not trade deadline, to free agency, right? They re-signed Jacob Peterson on Friday to a 1-year, 2-way contract worth $775,000. So basically a vet min contract for Jacob Peterson. Peterson looked great for the Sharks last year, and this feels like a very much of a steal type of contract. And he's only 23. He'll be 24 at the beginning of the season, I believe. And he had 8 points in 11 games for the Barracuda, and then he had 6 points in 8 games for the Sharks, playing kind of top 6 minutes. And he should be I think he's pretty close to being a lock for the Sharks as a opening night roster player. So this feels like an absolute steal. I was, if they gotten him for 1 year, $1 million or something like that, I would have been happy with this. But getting him on a vet min contract feels like an absolute steal. He would still have to go through waivers to go back down to the Barracuda. And I think somebody might try to snag him if he did go through that. So I expect him to be on the Sharks like basically all of next season unless something happens. And then he'll be an RFA after next year as well. So you can kind of, maybe if you want to give him a bigger contract, play the RFA game with him, whatever you want to do. But Peterson kind of feels like a solid piece for the Sharks that they got for Scott Sabourin, who just didn't feel like who's going to be a contributor for the Sharks going forward. So I love this deal. Great work by Mike Grier. I think most people who watched the Sharks at any point last year and saw, especially at the end of the season, saw Jacob Peterson, saw a guy who can contribute. And, I think if he will be a, middle six to, I guess, second line or third line type of player for the Sharks. But there is some potential and some upside for him as well. So great contract from Mike Grier. So next, of course, they re-signed Eetu Mäkiniemi. Mäkiniemi also in a 1-year deal worth $775,000. He is still waivers exempt, so you don't have. He will be your Barracuda #1 and basically kind of like the Sharks' third goalie, right? If Blackwood or Kakkonen get hurt, Mäkiniemi is going to get the call, and he's going to get a chance to continue to kind of prove that he's ready. But there's a big year for Mäkiniemi, right? The last 2 seasons has struggled with injuries. He's looked good for the Barracuda last year, but again, he's struggled with injuries the past 2 seasons. So it's a big year for him to kind of prove that he's going to be ready to kind of take the reins the following season, especially, if Kakkonen has another bad year this year, his contract's done after this season. And then maybe you could be looking at a Blackwood Mäkiniemi kind of tandem going in for the 24-25 season. So, smart contract, with Mäkiniemi. And then if he proves that he's maybe up to the task, he regresses, he can't stay healthy, you don't have to qualify him next year, and you can send him back out. And then you have Magnus Krona and Georgi Romanev and whoever else, if you want to sign another goalie. Like, you still have plenty of flexibility and options going forward. So, but expect big year for Mäkiniemi in the Barracuda this season. So And then the other, let's see, the Sharks also re-signed, or I guess signed Fabian Zetterlund. So he got a 2-year contract worth $1.45 million AAV. So this, feels about right. I think his Evolving Hockey had his projected contract at a 1.6, 2 years at 1.6 million. So right there in the ballpark, right? Zetterlund struggled when he came over to San Jose, and Mike Grier talked about that, where I think for him coming from a team like the Devils, where it was, probably a little bit more fun winning games every night compared to kind of the slog that was the end of the Sharks season, and really kind of struggled to establish himself. But they're excited with Zetterlund. He's had a good summer from all accounts, and I think he will, coming in fresh, coming into training camp, going to be able to establish that chemistry a little bit more. So, and again, 1.45 million. Like these contracts aren't very expensive right now. So, and it's for 2 years. So you have kind of a 2-year window with Zetterlund where you can try to figure things out with him. And I expect for Zetterlund to have a much better season next year. Maybe not the, 20 points in 45 games he had with the Devils, but if Zetterlund ends up in that, 30 to 35 point range for the Sharks on $1.45 million, you can kind of feel there's, and again, I think he can help the power play a little bit more than he's going to have opportunities to help out the Sharks, because there's not a lot of pieces in front of him. So, and then the final, I guess, signing is Mackenzie Blackwood. So there was, of course, much ado about nothing in Sharks Twitter land, because, the Sharks did not qualify Mackenzie Blackwood. This ended up being a smart move by Mike Grier. Again, if his qualifying offer was a like $3.3 million. Like, Mackenzie Blackwood is not worth $3.3 million, but they still were able to kind of negotiate with him before free agency, and they got this deal at $2.25 million. Blackwood, who has struggled with some injuries and consistency the past couple seasons, but there is potential there, right? And you gave up a 6th-round pick, okay? I looked back since 2015, one player with the Sharks that was a 6th-round pick has played NHL games. His name is John Leonard, and he got traded last off season. Like, a 6th-round pick is not, it's nothing, right? Yes, for every Kevin LeBanc who was a 6th-round pick, there's like 15 guys who were 6th-round picks who just never make it to the NHL type of thing. And if I think his name was Colton Brown, or whoever the Devils picked with a 6th-round pick, if he turns out to be the next Joe Pavelski or something like that, then okay. But the odds are in your favor that you got an NHL player, and Mackenzie Blackwood, for a 6th-round pick. The odds that you were going to take a 6th-round pick a player and get an NHL player out of him are not that high. So Blackwood, there has been some consistency issues, and there has been some injury and durability issues. But the goalie he was before, during the COVID shutdown, he was considered a future kind of star for the Devils, and a future goalie of the future type of player for them. So I think maybe a new situation, whatever it is, knowing this is kind of a big opportunity for him, especially with the way Kaapo Kähkönen has been playing. I think we see a pretty solid season for Blackwood, and if he's bad, it costs you a 6th-round pick, and we all know the best way to tank games is having bad goaltending, or tank seasons is to have bad goaltending. So cool. But yeah, I think it's a solid risk for a player. Again, the chances of you getting an NHL player for a 6th-round pick in the draft are very, very, very slim. So before we get to know the newest Sharks and kind of what their expected roles are going to be this season, do want to thank you guys for making Locked On Sharks your first listen. Again, proudly a part of the Locked On Network, where we cover your team every day. If you want to be an everyday, all you got to do is just follow along wherever you get podcasts, or you can watch this on YouTube. We'll be back, of course, next week with plenty of free agency coverage. If there's an Erik Karlsson trade, I'm going to start digging into all the new prospects, all those scouting reports, get you guys kind of up to date on everything that's going on. And maybe we'll look back at some recent drafts and kind of see how those are shaking out. So again, make sure you guys follow along wherever you get podcasts or subscribe on YouTube as well. And the new guys. So the Sharks did sign some players who were on different teams last year, and they didn't have actual negotiating rights with them. So let's look at who they signed first. So we'll start on the defense. Kyle Burroughs signed a 3 years, $1.1 million deal. He played 48 games last year with the Canucks, had 2 goals, 3 assists, 47 shots on goal, 1722 ice time. Corsi for 47.48, goals for 42.86. Not the most impressive kind of analytics there, but again, the Canucks were pretty bad like the Sharks were last year as well. So, but Burroughs, he is a kind of defensive defenseman, and he's a gritty defensive defenseman. If you like your defenseman fighting, Kyle Burroughs is going to be one of your favorites. So he's 27, and this contract is going to basically run through his age 30 year season. And this feels very, very much like a Matt Benning 2.0 type of situation where you looked at Matt Benning's numbers and the offense is not going to be there, right? Kyle Burroughs is not going to be playing offense for you. But if you're trying to improve your defense, I think Kyle Burroughs can be that guy. Looking at his analytics here, playing second pair in defensive minutes, positive defense on even strength, positive defense shorthanded, basically playing PK1, solid at drawing penalties. Again, I don't think Kyle Burroughs should be doing much offensively for you. But this feels very much like a Matt Benning situation where, like I said, we're going to be talking about how much a great pick or a great signing this was a year from now, just like we're doing with Matt Benning. And we've seen David Quinn really coach up some of these defensemen, and especially the Vancouver coaching recently is not. David Quinn still has some question marks, but we have seen his ability to coach up defensemen, and we saw Vlasic have a good season. We saw Matt Benning have a good season last year. I trust him with Henry Thrun. Karlsson, of course, won the Norris. That's two defensemen David Quinn has coached to become Norris winners. So Kyle Burroughs for the Norris, whatever the FanDuel odds are on that, put $1 down. No, I'm kidding. Don't do that. That would be absolutely insane. But this feels like a good pick. And 3 years, a little bit long, but at $1.1 million, you can easily bury that in the AHL if you need to, or if you waived him, I wouldn't be surprised if a team snagged him anyway. So you can just wash your hands of the contract. So pretty easy to kind of bury that contract if you need to. So next is one Givani Smith. He signed a 2-year deal worth $800,000. Played 36 games last year, 1 goal, 4 assists, 30 shots on goal, average time on ice 7 minutes. Corsi for 50.7, goals for 43.75. Not much. Again, it's very small sample size, so really haven't seen too much in the way of what type of player he is. Played with Detroit and Florida last year. I think he's going to fill that Jonah Gadovich role. He had 8 fighting majors last year. He's gritty. He's tough. He's going to stick up for his teammates. All that stuff that Mike Grier enjoys. So here's your Jonah Gadovich replacement type of guy. Wouldn't be surprised if he's one of those kind of bounces back between the Barracuda and the Sharks. Would have to go through waivers, but again, I think that's kind of going to be kind of his role as that Jonah Gadovich type of thing. We're bringing in some toughness, maybe a little bit of a scoring pop. He's going to play 4th line type of minutes for the Sharks, or he's going to play on the Barracuda type of that type of player. So, and then I didn't make cards for the AHL guys, but The Sharks also signed an old friend in Ryan Carpenter, who was a Sharks prospect way back in the day. He bounced around, went to Vegas. He played for Chicago. He played for the Rangers, mostly been an AHL type of guy. And here's your new Andre Agozzino, where he's going to come in. He's going to be a leadership type of player, going to show the young guys how to be a professional. If you need him to come and play up on the Sharks for a pinch, he can do that again as a bottom, fourth line type of guy. But I think that's going to be his role, is being that mentor. And he talked about that in his availability today of being that mentor, showing how the young guys how to be a professional. And then he's a pretty solid AHL guy as well. So last year he scored, where's the number right here? He scored 44 points in 51 games for the Hartford Wolfpack. He's excited because he doesn't have to travel as much, right? With the Barracuda and the Sharks being in the same city. He's not having to travel basically 2.5 hours a day as he was before, especially going up to Hartford, and his family was living in, I assume, in New York somewhere. But you need these type of guys who can come in, be stable. You know exactly what you're getting for him, especially in the AHL. Help out the young guys. You're going to have still a ton of young guys, right? You're going to have Robbins and probably Bordelot and Gushin and Coe and Weisblatt and Cardwell. You're going to have a bunch of young guys who, yes, a lot of them are going to be through their second season, but still a lot to ask for them. And I think I wouldn't be surprised if Ryan Carpenter is the captain of the Barracuda next year. Just throwing that out there. He was the captain. He's been a captain before in the Bowling Green. I'm just throwing that out there. I wouldn't be surprised if Ryan Carpenter is your captain. He also played with John McCarthy when McCarthy was with the Barracuda and the Worcestershire Sharks anyway. So I'm just that's my guess, is Ryan Carpenter is your new captain of the Barracuda. So, and then finally, they also signed Scott Sabourin. Sabourin signed a 2-year, two-way contract at $775. Will also, just like Ryan Carpenter, have to go through waivers. Not worried about them getting claimed. Sabourin's 30, career AHL guy. He's played 400 games in the AHL. Solid 33 points last year, 51 games, 177 penalty minutes. So if you enjoy, I think he's going to be a fan favorite. I have a feeling for the Barracuda fans next year. 6'4", so he's going to add some more grit. He's going to add some more toughness to Barracuda, especially for a Barracuda team, which we know a lot of the forwards are on the shorter end. Again, another one is be a professional type of guy. Come in and show the young guys how to be a professional and how to play, get through a season, all that fun stuff, and add some more toughness, especially since the Barracuda lost guys like VL and, the Chris Golan re-signed elsewhere. So there's going to be you need some of these guys around. That way it's not just the children running around and trying to figure things out. So overall, I think Mike Grier had a pretty solid start to free agency. None of these contracts are horrendous. The Duclair trade, I think, is going to be an absolute win for the Sharks. The longest contract they gave was 3 years, and it's at $1.1 million that you can bury that thing in the AHL if you need to. No big money handed out, and even taking care of his own players. Mackenzie Blackwood got the biggest contract deal at $2.25 million or whatever he signed. These are all very, very smart contracts that are short term, and they don't cost a lot of money, and kind of some tickets to try to figure out some stuff. And you're allowing your young guys to develop without having to thrust them into roles that maybe they're not ready for. And when they start to get ready for them, cool. If you have to send Givani Smith down to the Barracuda, okay. If you have to, stuff like that, where a lot of these players, if you need to send them down or if you need to ask them to take a different role, you're setting your young guys up for success with a lot of these signings. So again, Sharks gonna be bad. Right now the whole purpose is to how can you prepare your young guys for success. How can you set them up for success by not asking them to do things they're not ready to do or not putting them in roles where they're not going to succeed, right? You don't want William Eklund playing bottom 6 minutes. You want to put him in top 6 minutes. Plenty of opportunity for him to do that. And you have guys who can fit those bottom 6 minute roles. And then you're also putting guys, if you want to put Eklund, Hertl, Duclair on a line together, that sounds like a fun line to me. So especially with Duclair's ability to forecheck and his speed and Eklund's vision, and then Hertl, his being the big body, I can control the puck. Cool. Let's ride with that line as your first top line going into the season. So that's going to be it for me tonight. I am exhausted. It's been a long week. I'm glad to be home. Be back on Monday or Sunday night Monday with any news that happens from free agency day 2. So make sure you guys are following along wherever you get podcasts. Of course, you can watch on YouTube as well. You can follow along on Twitter if it's working. Also Facebook, Instagram, both at Locked On Sharks as well. Instagram posted a bunch of pictures from Nashville and at the draft. So you can check those out there as well. You can follow me on Twitter at my fry hole, again, if it's working. Until Monday. Bye, friends.